big news that we are tracking. We're given to understand that Russian President Putin called Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In fact, that particular social media post has also been shared where Prime Minister has gone on to say, thank my friend President Putin for his phone call and for sharing insights on his recent meeting with President Trump in Alaska. India has consistently called for a peaceful resolution of the Ukraine conflict and supports all efforts in this regard. In fact, he's also gone on to state that I look forward to our continued exchanges in the days to come. In fact, let me take that crucial development across to my colleague Sameer Dixit joining me on the broadcast. Sameer, very good evening. Given the fact the timing of this is also crucial, more importantly, what's been stated, and this is not the first time as far as how those words of Prime Ministers also resonated earlier, given the particular conflict as well between Russia and Ukraine. But the timing of this right after the fact that that important meeting did take place between Donald Trump and Putin, and now this particular outreach that we've seen to Prime Minister Modi. What are we picking up, Sameer?
A very valid point, because you mentioned about the timings part, which is the most interesting aspect in this important development taking place, that Russian President Vladimir Putin, he called upon Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the official statement released by the government, it mentions that Putin gave sort of a briefing, gave sort of a discussion that what all discussion took place between Putin and American President Donald Trump that happened last week. So whatever the discussion took and how the Russian President analyzed that particular briefing that was discussed with Indian Prime Minister. And this is also important in the light that we have seen number of statements issued by the American President, the hard statement against India, the tariff war which is ongoing, and also the kind of a threat that if India continues to buy oil from Russia, then the tariff might escalate, it might increase. I mean, all these developments, this is once again quite interesting to see that Russian President Putin called upon Indian Prime Minister, and he discussed that what sort of discussion took place between him, Putin, and the American President. In addition to this, the official statement released by the Indian government side also mentioned that both the head of the state also discussed upon the issues that touches upon the bilateral coordination, and that they will continue to talk, they will continue to take this forward to further strengthen the special and privileged relationship between the two countries. So that's a very important point that was discussed. In addition to this, India also underlined the consistency that it maintains that the problem or the issue can be solved through diplomatic dialogue, and through peaceful resolution it can be achieved. And that is the position that India continues to maintain. That was also reiterated. So that's an important development taking place between India and Russia, where the Russian President called upon Indian Prime Minister and they had a telephonic conversation.
All right, Sameer, I appreciate you putting that into context for us, but stay with me. I'm going to try coming back to you. But let me also get in a word in from my colleague Sumita, who's, of course, keeping us ahead as far as these developments are also concerned. Sumita, you heard what Sameer had to say, more importantly, putting that post into context as well. But given the overall aspect as to how we're looking at this, the timing of it, the wordings as well, given the other scenario that we have seen as far as Prime Minister Modi in the past also talking about the conflict, where we know how those words also resonated on a global front as well. But what more can you tell us with the timing of this particular call?
Absolutely, and in fact the timing of this call is most important to note at the moment, given the fact that it is coming in even just as in a short while from now. Later tonight, President Putin, I beg your pardon, President Zelensky interacts with President Trump, and of course accompanying him will be several other leaders from the European Union as well, including Giorgia Meloni and several others from Europe. Remember, they have been asking consistently for a couple of things. A, that Ukraine should be part of the table where these talks happen, given the fact that Ukraine is an important part of all of these negotiations. It's an important part of that war, Russia-Ukraine war. Secondly, they've been asking for is the fact that territorial concessions. Well, and of course, they've also been speaking about the fact that, inclusion of Ukraine into NATO, that's also something that Ukraine has been asking for. Ukraine's also been asking for its territorial sovereignty as well. So remains to be seen how these conversations shape up in just a few hours from now in the Oval Office, given the fact that conversations with President Putin of President Trump have already happened, wherein President Trump stated that, those conversations went well. They were productive talks. Also something that President Putin also stated, and not just that, a red carpet was laid out for President Putin. But, they seem to be tilting more towards President Putin, given the fact that Donald Trump has tweeted just a short while back on Truth Social that Ukraine becoming part of NATO is out of the picture. And of course, he's also spoken about, Crimea and the fact that it could not be returned to Ukraine. So remains to be seen what kind of concessions will later be given by Russia as far as all of these issues of European leaders and, of course, Ukraine are concerned. And, Article 5 guarantees, especially as far as, we're given to understand from media reports, those could be given, those could be asked by European leaders. What would all of those entail?
All right, Sumita, thank you also for joining us and putting that into context, given not just what has happened with that phone call, but going forward, what else we can look forward to it. And having said that, we'll keep you ahead as far as that's concerned. But for the moment, we leave the conversation at that, but taking a cue from what Sumita was also putting into context.